welcome back to the Healing You Show, and today we're going to be discussing the topic, do you feel pressured by time? I'm your co-host Vanessa Harris, and I'm here with our host Gloria Lybecker. How are you today?
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. It's quite a concept we're going to explore, this thing about time. I know in the States we've just had daylight savings time change, so it's really affected a lot of people. And this thing about time, what time do we get up? What time do we get used to doing things? And we have our own inner rhythm that we have our preferences around. So that's one way of perceiving time.
So yeah, it's a big shift, daylight savings. There's an adjustment there for everybody to make. Bodies need time to adjust.
Yes. Yeah, and so there's other ways that that this can show up in our life, though. I know, especially when I was younger, and I had younger children at home. Time was like a scarce commodity, and it was like I was always running out of time, or I was the pressure would be really intense if I needed to get my child a specific place, and they didn't want to go. So that would have time pressure really big. And so
I used to hear that a lot when I was working with families, particularly of young preschool children. I don't have time would be the words that, and we would spend many of our sessions actually problem solving how to create time to fit in treatment or time to tune in, because they actually needed to tune in and listen to their children really closely. So it was creating space and time. It was a big one.
Yeah, well, so part of it for me is recognizing what is my intention underneath this time pressure. What needs am I attempting to meet? And that helped me so much to just slow it down, to recognize what needs am I attempting to meet when I'm pressuring my children to get out the door. Or when I'm guilting myself and telling myself what I should have done if I would have been ready and I stayed on task, so I'd have that harsh inner critic at me. What needs am I attempting to meet when I do that? And part of it is really wanting to have integrity and wanting to honor the time of others when I've agreed to be somewhere. And so there's wanting to honor that. It's important to me. And yet I know that my youngest son helped me to learn that choosing my relationship with him really was my top priority. And that I could actually let go of some of the other perceptions I had. And so that really helped me a lot, because when I could choose to stay in relationship with my child, regardless of what might have come up, regardless of what time it is, when I choose to take the time to be relational, it can soften the perception of pressure.
Yes, I like that term, the perception of pressure, because there's definitely something that comes up for me around time when I feel like I perceive that I'm short on time, or I don't have enough time, usually because I've overloaded myself with an unrealistic task or deadline, or agreed to do too many things that, rather than just saying, no, I won't be able to do that. That actually that perception then creates a whole feeling. I find myself getting quite stressed. So I'm wondering what happens inside. Am I alone in that?
No,
I think a common experience.
I think that is quite common. We have a lot of perceptions that are taught to us before we actually learn how to tell what time it is. Even when we were children, how did our parents handle time? And depending on what generation you're in, that might be slightly different. And but there's even all the advertising that you can run across on the radio or on television or whatever it is you're watching on social media. There's a lot of time-oriented things to hurry up. You don't want to miss out. So a lot of people are trying to cram as much in as they possibly can. But how much are we actually experiencing what we're taking in? We're just so afraid we're going to miss out on something.
Well, I think that's actually even a sales technique, isn't it? Creating a sense of urgency.
Scarcity. There's not many left.
Yeah.
Going fast. Jump in today.
Don't miss out. And so when I get into that spin where I'm trying to do so many things and I'm feeling pressured by time and I'm going to run out of time and I'm not going to get to all of the tasks, I find that then that starts to impact the way I interact with other people. So you're talking about choosing relationship with your child, which funnily enough I never had a lot of difficulty with, but I think my expectations were so adjusted with my kids. It was like, it is going to take 45 minutes to get out the front door, not 2, because they will just take that long, and then they will want to stand there and unlock the door while we're rushing out. So I used to just back to that, and I came down to one thing a day was all I could ever manage. One thing a day. I can't do anything more than one thing a day. But if I'm feeling all of this stress and urgency and upset internally, how is that then going to impact my relationship?
Well, we're going to have a lot more cortisol flooding our system. So we're going to be going around like half-mast, even present to our own experience, and probably trying to multitask a lot of things. And so in relationship with other people, then they're going to feel that whether or not I name it. Because most likely I'm going to have more distractibility because I'm trying to track so many things. So I'm not really paying attention to others in my relationship so much. I kind of go in an autopilot, I'm imagining, with, I think I already know something, so I'm really not paying attention. So I might miss cues in relationship, in conversation, because I already think I know what they're going to say or do.
Because that's efficient. If I know what you're going to say, then I can just jump straight in there, because I haven't got time to listen to you go on for the whole thing, because I'm already guessing to the end, so that I can just move this along quickly and get back to what I need to do. Well,
one thing that I used to do that I know my husband really did not enjoy was I would finish his sentences for him. And he'd just want, can I just finish what I was going to say? And I just did it. I didn't even mean to do it. But I would hear where it was going, and then I would finish the sentence. I don't think I've done that for quite a while, but yeah. That was a painful one for him. But I wasn't really listening if I'm jumping in and giving him more information.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, in a way, actually kind of a dismissal. Like, I already know what you've got. It's like, yeah. So, I mean, but we can do that when we really get, and we can connect the dots quickly, perhaps. And yet that's not really being relational. That's really attached to a strategy to be super efficient or effective, or and it's more task-oriented. So it's more left hemisphere. It's shifting left rather than staying in balance and being really relational and having the right orbital frontal cortex available to resonate with others, to where you can actually feel the experience of connection.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's a lot more analyzing rather than connecting. And it's definitely something that I know I'm guilty of, because when I'm in that time poor mode where I'm trying to get things done and I'm trying to be efficient, I'm then just trying to speed things up, and I'm not connecting in. And it's not great to assume that it's because someone was feeling that or experiencing that yesterday, that's what they're going to be experiencing today.
But when we have that internal experience and we're heightened and we're kind of semi-flipping our lid, other people are going to feel that in the relationship with us, because nervous systems sync up. So it happens on all the different layers. So have you ever gone in somewhere where you had a supervisor or a boss, and you could tell if they weren't having a good day? And how is it going to affect everybody else? Yeah. Or if you go in and you have a coworker that's just feeling great, and you can feel that, there's kind of a joy juice that kind of can be shared, a real positive light cast on the world, and everything looks brighter and calmer and sweeter.
Yes.
So we really do affect one another in these different ways. And then it would affect the way we would show up, our own performance or our behaviors. So, if I would get cross and cranky, well, then my children most likely will too.
That would explain why when I need my children to be on board the most, or just anyone around me, they seem to work against me. Like this perception. It's like, why? I'm really needing your assistance right now. I'm needing some efficiency. I'm needing you to move along. Why is it that you are now moving against me? Because they're reflecting what's going on for me. There was something else that you said about the efficiency and being flooded with cortisol, and walking around half-mast. So I guess the paradox is that I'm needing to be efficient. I'm overwhelmed. I don't have enough time. But then this overwhelm is actually creating an inefficiency.
Scarcity.
Yeah, I become more and more inefficient.
Yeah, so it's actually so much more effective when we can just push the pause button and slow down and actually breathe into our heart space, breathe into our body, notice what our sensations are, and to start to do that self-connection with some compassion for ourselves. Because when we take the time to actually get that oxygenated empathy in our cells, life begins to look different. We begin to experience life different. We're much more present rather than so caught up in our strategies.
I'm just thinking about when I've actually had time to be grounded and stop and breathe, and when I actually feel myself spinning, and then the impact that has. It almost feels like I have new relationships and a new job, and like I've stepped into a whole new realm. It's kind of like an alternative reality.
It is. It actually, and you can feel the difference. It's a different paradigm. It's a different way of being in relationship with life. But to be able to really be present and in choice. So many of us don't even feel like we have choice. So I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do this other thing and I just have so much to do. And instead, another practice that we could do is make a list of all the things you have to do. And then go back to the top and cross out have to and put choose to. And then recognize what need are you attempting to meet by this action that you're taking. So, I mean, it transforms the way I clean my bathroom. Because that's the thing I hated to clean the most. I have to do it. It's like, well, no, it's contributing to, cleanliness, to health and well-being. Yeah. Just really so important to actually recognize, what am I doing that's a contribution? It's important. But to really value it and to have that kind of attention with intention changes the whole practice of whatever I'm about.
Attention with intention. So when you were saying what I choose to do, right, take away the have to, that is then drawing your attention to what you're actually intending to do.
Yeah, well, it's because it's based in what are the needs that I'm meeting. And it's becoming conscious. I'm becoming more aware of my choices. And it's in alignment with my values rather than I don't have a choice. I just have to do this horrible task.
So the have to conversation, which is a lot around the pressures of time, which is a kind of an unusual concept when you consider time is ticking along doing its own thing separate to us, but there's this perception that time is attacking us in some way. But I hear that a lot. I have to do this. I have to. I can't do this. I have to. And a lot of people don't really have choice. or feel they don't, or don't know that they have choice.
Yeah, it's a whole different way of perceiving, because it's actually a conditioned reality. And it's taught to many of us from the time we're just really small. We're told what we have to do. You have to do it. You don't have a choice. You have to. You must. You know?
Oh yeah, I've been having that conversation lately. And yesterday, actually, I actually just got to the point where I was like, I'm sick of this pigsty that we're living in, and I'm not making a request. This is a demand. Please just clean up your filth. I said, please, now do it.
Was it really effective?
Well, no, it was so ineffective. I think at 6:30 I was complaining, saying, you know, the job that you agreed to do at 2:00, it's still not done. Like, what's happening? Yeah, just, and I never stopped. I didn't choose a relationship. I didn't stop and go, why is my son spinning his wheels and getting distracted? Like, I would see him and I would observe the behavior, like getting distracted, like picking up something and just looking at it, swinging it around. I'm like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so we can actually have these filters that drop down that are filters of judgments.
Mm-hmm.
And then even what you'd said before, we then perceive that something is against us or diminishing us. Mm-hmm. That like life is against us, this person's against us. And it creates enemy images. And so when we can actually begin to notice those filters and actually start to hear what we're telling ourselves, then we can begin to recognize other choices that are available through self-connection. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's an enemy image that gets created around time. Sometimes people, I've actually had people say we just need extra days in the week. And I'm like, what would that do? We would just fill them up with things to do. I don't think it would actually, instead of creating more time, I'm getting really present to letting go of how many things need to be done.
What is really important? To
Yeah.
slow it down, to recognize what is really important to you.
Or finding a different strategy to get things done.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I just, yeah. So,
well, in my experience, when I take the time for self-care, it expands my sense of time.
So making time for yourself creates more time.
Well, self-care for me would be taking time for self-connection, taking time to be connected with life, to really be in alignment with my own values, which for me, it's about the relationships I have, first with myself and then with others, and letting it fill my calendar spots as it does, but being really intentional about that. Otherwise, instead of my calendar serving me, I'm serving my calendar, and there's nothing left over for me. Because now it's all full. In fact, it's over full, and I can't seem to get through the day. And then I start spinning a whole different track that's about scarcity. It's not enoughness, inefficiency. Everything is like on the flip side in the shadows. Instead of really creating the space that's going to be in service of my life.
So I'm just getting a real sense too, as you're describing that and talking about the calendar being in service of you, and remembering times in my life when I was very young, like as a teen, and I had such a busy calendar that I remember my cousin saying, "Can I call you?" And I said, "Oh, I've got an opening in 2 weeks for a phone call." And but then and my sister was similar in that she's always very busy, and we had this thing we were running around. So I'm wondering what is the payoff there? Like, a lot of people are in this pattern of keeping themselves really, really busy and being pressured by time. So for me, I'm starting to think that there was a payoff for that. I felt like I had to be busy, or
so it might be some misrecognized needs like those can kind of slip in from our culture. Like, I'm important because I've got such a busy schedule and so many people want to get in to see me. You know, I'm booked out for like 2 months, you know, so I mean, there can be some prestige that can be perceived in that, because I want to matter. That's what it's really. I need to matter, and I love inclusion and to belong and to be welcomed in life.
Okay. I'm relating to that when you were saying that I have friends I would ring and say, how are you? And they'd go, oh, I'm so busy. I've been doing so much. And they would just go into this list of all the things they've been doing. And I think, I didn't ask what you've been doing. I asked, how are you?
Yeah.
But when you were describing that, I was thinking, for me, I think it was probably scarcity you were talking about. So it was just booking up every second of my day. I think I had a perception that if I wasn't working every minute and earning money, I was going to be on the street.
Yeah. So it was a powerful motivator, sustainability.
Yeah.
Having a shelter.
That's my way of giving myself security, I guess.
Yeah.
Feeling empowered, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's that status you're talking about is definitely something around that if you're not busy, then you're not doing your job properly, or you're not important, or
to really notice that too. And I don't know, do we ever book in time just to be? It's the art of doing nothing. I love to do it with my herd especially, but just to hang out and just to notice what is. I mean, and when we take the time to practice that, then we start to notice things that we didn't even know before. We didn't even see because we were so time oriented and task oriented that we actually put blinders on ourselves and we can't see because we're not expecting to see it.
It's that task oriented versus relationship oriented.
It's the doing versus the being.
I'm relating to that on many levels, and I actually get judged, I think, when I do a lot of being and not a lot of doing. And when I was young, I did not take my children to a lot of scheduled things. So I don't know what in Australia there's this big thing about sport and swimming lessons. Oh, it's just such a big, it's like swimming lessons. Everyone has to learn to swim. It's like, you know what, they all pretty much learn to swim. They don't need to be champion swimmers. They just need to be able to float in the pool and not sink underneath. You don't need to be going 3 times a week. But the kids' schedules they'd have to have something on every single day. And sometimes I would feel like I'm not a good mum. I'll judge myself because I wasn't filling up our schedule, and I was just really wanting my kids to just learn to just hang out and have time to just find something to do, play, hang out with me, connect, watch the ants. That's what I used to do when I used to get stressed when I was a kid, or just when I wanted something to do. But that being, it's just, I'm just checking the world out here.
And that's important. And what I heard you say is that when you started to compare yourself to other moms and other schedules, then you found yourself lacking. And that's typically what happens when we compare ourselves, is because we are looking to see, where am I lacking? Because we do have that negativity bias in our perception, unless we are aware of it.
And so, and when we're trying to be responsible for other people's schedules, so we're talking about our calendars, you were talking about before about our calendar ruling us. But then often what I notice with parents is that they've got several other calendars that they are fitting into, work calendars, other people's work schedules, their children's sporting schedules, or
busy,
hobbies.
Just filled up.
Yep. Running around from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And everyone
and then they're never home.
Yes. Yep. Sometimes I think it doesn't really matter where we live because, people weren't there. So it doesn't really matter what your environment is at home because you spend so little time in it.
Yeah, so I think it's just really important for our purposes here of this exploration is really noticing, do you notice what happens inside when you feel pressured by time? And to just kind of take a moment to pause and be in your inner experience in order to start to invite yourself to be in full choice, to have a full yes with whatever you're giving your attention to, and to be curious around it, and just to start to develop more awareness around how you're perceiving in that moment.
So what I'm hearing there is, if you're hearing the words, I don't have time, or you're feeling pressured,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get a sense that it's around not having enough time, or a transition around time, or something to do with time, even though you may not feel like you have time, it's important to stop
To slow
and tune
time
in.
down. Yeah.
Right.
It's a
And
practice of slowing time down. Yeah.
right.
And noticing how that is for your body.
In that particular moment. Okay. And then, so I'm guessing that would be very a foreign concept for a lot of people.
It might be. Yeah. Because there's many that will believe that if they take the time to do that, that's just a waste of time. And yet, if you're willing to practice with it and be playful with it and notice what is it like, because when we become self-connected and curious about our experience, it actually changes what's happening within us. And then we can actually begin to see things or experience things differently. So, but it is a practice of noticing and then choosing yourself, choosing to take the pressure off and noticing what that's like.
And I'm guessing that interrupts a really well-worn pattern, because even as we've been talking about this conversation and me just remembering and thinking about to sort of relate to this concept of, oh, when are the times that I felt pressured, or I feel my body going into almost like an automatic response, just in almost like a memory of, oh yeah, it's like, I know that feeling. I'll put you in that mode just by thinking about it. So is it hard? Is it hard to interrupt that pattern?
Well, it's just by bringing our attention to it, and then also having the intention already of what's it like when I slow time down, I automatically take a breath into my belly or into my heart. Because we have brain cells in both of those areas too. And so it's actually accessing more of our sense of self instead of just up here where we're trying to track everything. It brings us more into balance with the wholeness that we are. Because we can get really left shifted. And when we can come back and we can actually begin to resource our body, then we can start to notice what's different. What do we notice inside now? Yeah.
So, and for those of us who find it difficult to do that practice on their own, is there somewhere they could tap into getting some accompaniment around that? I know that for me, when you say to me, slow down, or can I just go back down to that moment? Can we just stop there and just pull that down?
Yeah.
And you actually guide me through where are you feeling that in your body? I find that much easier to do.
That accompaniment. Yeah. Well, they're on my website at Healing You Sanctuary. Then they can find, I have a free course that would invite them into exploring many of these different concepts. And when folks are ready to have community, then there are small groups that will just keep funneling through that they would get to join when they're looking for that. There's also a place where they could get a free consultation for the first time to get to chat with me. I'd be happy to walk them through some of these practices and for them to get to experience what is it like to receive that kind of support and accompaniment. Yeah.
And I, having just completed one of those community courses, can thoroughly recommend that. Really I think there was a day, I was going through a really difficult time with my time. I was working really long hours and trying to get things done in a really high time pressure. And there were days where I just think, I just don't have time to get on and do this course or this call today. I just don't want to be doing it. And within minutes of sitting down, I would just be so glad that I was there and so grateful. And then my entire day would shift and I would just become so much more efficient and everything would flow so much better. And I think I even made a comment thinking, I was just going to fob the next course off. I just no way I couldn't find time for that. And then I realised, I really need it. So I can definitely make a personal recommendation on that.
Oh, thank you. Well, there's something to be said that when we bring our attention together and we have a shared focus, there's a resonance buildup that we all get the benefit from, especially in those small groups. It really co-creates or co-regulates our nervous systems with one another, and we all benefit together. So it's a beautiful way to hang out.
It is. And I do find it easy to focus on other people. So sometimes that is just a simple way for me to just slow down and tune in.
Decompress. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And I'll see you next week.
All right. I look forward to it.
Thank you.